went to Nikola headquarters with several other of influencers, and we finally get a one-on-one conversation with Mr. Sean Mitchell. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for. Hold on. Earpods are dying right on me just as we start. You can hear me okay, right?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. It's not as good as before, but it's still doable.
I'll recharge here in just a second. Thank you for having me, Doug. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to talking about Nikola and the electric vehicle market and anything else that you have in mind that you think I might have an interesting take on.
Yeah. So if people don't know who you are, tell us briefly about yourself.
I'm a residential real estate agent. That's my full-time job. I have a side hustle as a electric vehicle YouTuber-ish. So I've been doing that for, I don't know, 3 years or so. I own a Tesla Model S, and I also run a Tesla-sanctioned Tesla club called the Denver Tesla Club, and we've got, I don't know, somewhere around 1,500 members.
Oh, very nice. So people have been wondering, in case they haven't seen your channel recently, you just upload your thoughts and visit on Nikola's facility. But in case those who haven't seen it, what took you so long? It's like three weeks to a month since you visited, and you were radio silent. There's so many speculation. Like Sean was one of the most skeptic on Nikola, and then he just went radio silent on it.
Yeah, people thought that I was bought out, paid out, silenced by Nikola's NDA. I was wondering why it was taking so long as well, but the honest truth is real estate's really busy for me right now, and it's one of those things that's seasonal. It's a seasonal industry, and so you have to make hay while there's light, and that's just how it worked out. So it took me a while to actually. I had the idea in my head. If I could just remember to have some corded headphones, so I'm going to move to those in just a second. But I had the idea worked in my head since the very beginning, since after I traveled there. But that's just how it worked out, that it took 3 weeks, and I'm glad that I got it done because it was seriously a weight off my shoulders, because I probably would get, I don't know, 3 to 5 questions a day on where's your video at? When you got to publish it? Well, as soon as I can.
Right.
So I'm glad that I got it done.
Just a little sidetrack for a little bit. You said you're in the real estate market. Is it hot right now in this whole pandemic and with all this unemployment and everything?
Yeah, it is. Interestingly, my take on it is the people who can afford to buy houses are the ones that still have employment. The ones, unfortunately, who were impacted were some of the entry level, lower paying jobs. So, it's still very hot, very, very hot. And for about a month and a half, everything kind of shut down in Colorado. They weren't allowing any showings, no open houses. And then gradually, as they started to figure out, the pandemic and how it was being transmitted, then they started loosening things up around the city, including real estate. They allowed showings, but you had to wear a mask and gloves and so they've got some added precautions in place, and it seems to be working well so far. I probably have been in, I don't know, 50 to 100 homes since things opened back up again. And so far, I haven't, as far as I know, caught coronavirus. So I think I'm doing okay.
And demonetized. I'm just kidding.
Right. Yeah. Damn it.
My wife is saying it's the same thing in California. That just since the interest rates are so low, it's like crazy right now in real estate. They're buying houses like crazy, and renting market's high. So back to the main topic at hand. Tell us about you said you spent 7 hours with Trevor Milton in a guided visit in Nikola HQ. So you didn't really have time to ask him one-on-one direct questions, but give us like that whole timeline they walk you through, and what kind of stuff did you guys get to ask?
Yeah, it was very organized. They had the whole day was scheduled. So we got there. We met with some of their employees. They had a camera crew there, and so they as well wanted to sort of leverage the opportunity that they had with us visiting there. So we just sort of went through the expectations of the day, and We did like some intros for their video that they were making, and then we went right into one of their boardrooms and sat down with Trevor and sat down with their heads of software and hardware, and just they gave us the full reveal. They talked about their product. They talked about how they had designed everything, and we got to ask questions throughout the process. But there was really sort of a tight timeline on everything. And then once we did that, I think we got a tour of their facility, and they went through the different departments. They showed us their prototypes and bucks, they call them, the non-drivable prototypes. They showed us where they fabricate some of their hardware, as well as we did get to go into their design studio. They made us leave our phones outside. We couldn't. So it's like, they did tell us when we couldn't record things, and when it was like super, proprietary information. So we got a tour. We came back up for lunch, I think, talked some more, and then we also had a chance to sort of. It was just a lot of them sort of laying out their business model and their strategy, and so I did get to interject with some questions. All of us really did, because we had some questions that we were going in with, and mine were particularly around the Badger and refueling infrastructure. So I felt like I did get some real basic answers from my questions. But the reality is, what I really need is to sit down with him for 30 minutes to an hour and just go deep on 3 to 5 topics. And I think that everyone would probably be a lot more satisfied with that versus, rushing to go through Nikola's entire business model in one day.
So before you went into Nikola, you made videos that you're very skeptical. And you made a video update recently that you're still skeptical. So did that help make you less of a skeptic, more neutral, or how did that affect your opinion?
Well, here's what it did. After the visit, I realized that there are real humans with families and, real people. And Trevor in particular, my opinion of him before the visit was that he was just overly confident, and I used the word bombastic in my video, just very like dramatic with his presentation of the company. And him in interviews saying that he wants to out Elon and that they've disrupted the transportation industry without delivering any vehicles. These are the impressions that you get as you watch and listen to someone who's trying to drum up awareness about the business on interviews. But the person that I saw in person and sat down with him on and off camera was a far more humble of a person, far more approachable and down to earth. And this is the thing that I think is really, really important, just in general, as people make assessments about who people are. And people are making assessments about me, having never talked to me in person, knowing nothing about my life, accusing me of just wild things like being, paid off by Nikola, buying into Trevor's fraud. You really have to sit down and talk with people to understand where they're coming from and walk a mile in their shoes. And that's what I felt like I was able to do to some extent with this visit, is really just understand them a little bit more. And so they have a lot to prove. They're early stage, pre-revenue startup. And that's how you have to think about this company. It's just like early stage tech startup. And I came from the startup tech world. So to me, it makes sense. Some of the claims, they're pretty bold. They're a bit of a stretch. Even today, I heard Trevor say some things on the GM Nikola Badger media call that was like, it's quite a stretch to say that. But I'm listening more curiously to the company. That's my opinion at the moment. I'm still skeptical on
on their timelines for things, their revenue, their refueling infrastructure. These are all massive business challenges, and they're trying to tackle them all at once. And that's just the semi truck and the pickup truck. That's not to mention their ATVs and UTVs and watercrafts. It's like, all right, you could spend the next 10 years trying to get a semi truck line to production, let alone these other lines of business. So they've got a long, very hard road, very expensive road ahead of them.
Right, totally agree. I did notice that Trevor is a lot, aggressive on Twitter than he used to be when you guys met with him. It seemed like he went through a PR training class and is more suit and tie now, not the outspoken he usually was.
Yeah, he has come across as sort of quick wielding and a little bit wild west. If I had, going into that visit, if I had the opportunity, I really wanted to mention this to him, because I think that's a reason why some people don't really like him. He just comes across as pompous. And so the opportunity came at a certain point in the afternoon. He asked, and I believe this is in the first video that they've already published, has your opinion of Nikola changed? And my answer was, no, not really. I think it just confirms all the things that I thought about Nikola. Now, I want to just underscore the fact that I've never believed that Nikola is a fraud, trying to defraud investors. I think it's a company that has a lot that they need to still do. Meanwhile, trying to, as a publicly traded company now, generate awareness about the company. So it confirmed a lot of the things that I already knew, plus some nuggets of information about the Badger, which I was very curious to get some direct responses for. But what I did tell him was that the impression that he gives to people online is a very overly confident person, and that rubs a lot of people wrong. And to compare Nikola to Tesla is, they're on completely different planes. Tesla is so much further ahead, in my opinion. I realize some people may disagree, but in terms of product and getting their products out, Tesla's on a whole nother plane. So, for Trevor to compare Tesla to Nikola, it's completely off base. So I wanted to share that with him in a very diplomatic way, of course, and he, to my delight and surprise, was extremely responsive. And so since the visit, and I don't know if I had anything to do with it, but since the visit, he's seemed a lot more aware of what he's saying.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I want to move to the hot news today that everyone's talking about. It's blowing up and move the stock price 50%. GM and Nikola is having a partnership where, if I read it right, they're going to have 11% stake in Nikola, but Nikola is going to give them 11% share company. They didn't put money into the GM deal. And that GM is providing the battery and the fuel cell for the Badger. So what happened to all this Nikola battery technology or fuel technology that they claim they have?
That's a great question, and something I'm still asking myself, Doug. It's interesting. That was the shocker of the conference call to me. I was on the media conference call at 7 a.m. this morning, local Colorado time. So I'd barely just gotten out of bed and gotten my coffee. But I was thinking that whichever automaker it was going to be would see value in Nikola's tech stack, but it doesn't seem to be the case at this point. So I really have no clue. And so I'm just still processing things in real time today. And as we're having this discussion, what was the interest that GM had in Nikola? And a couple of things that I came up with, which really aren't strong responses or answers. Trevor talked on the media call about how they've got software and hardware integration, how that was one of the selling points that Nikola brought to the table with this partnership. And I I recall Mary Barra, the CEO of GM, stating that they liked the I'm paraphrasing here because I don't remember the exact words she used at the moment, but just the innovative culture that Nikola had. So I don't really know, and I'm really curious. Like, some questions that I have in my mind still are: what about Nikola's battery technology that they announced at the beginning of this year, the 500 watt hours per kilogram? What about Nikola's refueling infrastructure? Will GM invest into that to help address the Badger's refueling infrastructure that they will need if they want to sell the hydrogen version? Why didn't GM use Nikola's hydrogen refueling system or hydrogen system? I don't know. I really don't know, and it just has me wondering what the appeal was that GM saw in the company. Now, if things go well, maybe this is a brand that GM acquires and keeps as an ancillary name, an ancillary brand. I don't know. And to me, it was actually a bit of a shocker that GM that Nikola selected GM, because GM really doesn't have any hydrogen efforts. I was predicting that it was going to be Toyota, because they seem to be very fully on board with hydrogen still. So I have no clue, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, well, this is why I think. I actually have a two-part question. This is why I think. Trevor Milton posted an Instagram video of him showing off his old battery, but he said he has a new battery technology with the coolant. It's going to be a lot better, and it's going to be revealed at Nikola World. I think it might be a bait and switch, maybe, that Nikola is saving to boost their stock price again. And Nikola World, they reveal the battery, if it exists, same as a fuel cell, and say this will actually be in the Badger, and that might be a switch that they're going to do, since they are not ready to show off the battery technology or fuel cell. And a second part question I have for you is, did you see any software technology that Nikola had that made anyone would want, that you can't talk about or anything like that?
I can certainly talk about the software. That was something that they said was fine that we record. I think that they probably have some innovative startup ideas around integration of software into the vehicles. This is primarily around the fleet side, so the semi-truck side. They've got some like digital keys that will be associated with a lot, stuff that we're all used to with Tesla, but they're just going to build it out and make it more fleet friendly. But your key will be a digital key, and when the truck detects the digital key, all the settings and profiles of that particular driver will automatically adapt. The truck will automatically adapt to those settings. So I think these are things that Tesla already does to much of the extent, with a key fob or a digital key with a Model 3 or Model Y. But, so the software piece of it is interesting. I could tell that they have spent a lot of time. To my surprise as well, it was a very fluid and responsive UI and UX, which I think is really good. In comparison, just to give you a contrast, when I saw the Ford Mach-E, Mustang Mach-E, their electric SUV, back in November, that thing was ultra laggy, ultra slow. And I realized that they're not to production yet, so I'm sure they'll improve it. But Nikola hasn't even come out with a truck yet, and their software is actually very, very responsive. It's pretty appealing to the eye as well. So maybe it's the software, the integration of software and hardware that they like a lot, that GM likes a lot. But it may be the refueling system. If Nikola has some proprietary technology with the refueling system, and GM wants to go hydrogen, or at least offer it as a product, there may be some appeal there too.
Huh. So with that technology, sorry, I had a whole train of thought and question, and it totally
That's okay.
Went blank. But that key fob, I remember Tesla Joy was mentioning that, it was good for powertrains because truck drivers switch trucks all the time and they need that personal settings. Why do you need that for Badger? But what I got from what you just said is that Ford had a hard time with that type of keyless situation, so maybe GM want to throw that away.
I've never really been impressed with in-car software for traditional automakers. The best one that I've seen so far has been Audi's. Audi's is quite nice, but everyone else, I mean, Jaguars, their I-Pace in-car software was horrendous as a production vehicle. Horrendous. So slow and laggy. It was like you tap a feature and then you wait 2 or 3 seconds and then you see something happen. And that was my experience as well with the Ford Mach-E. Now, Ford, I'm gonna just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that Ford will improve their software by the time they get to full production. But I think when you have a company like Nikola, whose primary bread and butter is going to be fleet transportation, they should be able to come up with some innovative software solutions for solving transportation company problems. Like the one example that they mentioned, which I didn't really think would be a big challenge, but you have the tendency for companies or drivers to lose the keys, and if you lose a key, you can't get into the truck, and if you can't get into the truck, then you can't deliver your products. So if you have a digital key, and everyone has a phone, everyone has a smartphone, and that digital key is assigned to the smartphone, then hopefully it removes the chance of someone losing a key or not being able to get into the truck. And to be able to control the truck from a company's office remotely is another thing that could potentially solve some problems. The telematics piece, I don't know how much Nikola will integrate telematics into their trucking, but if they can find a way to integrate all the things that are currently different softwares and companies that then just become a hodgepodge of solutions for current truck drivers, they could definitely see some disruption there. They did talk about this Uber style freight for independent truck drivers. So you have the opportunity that comes up, and a truck driver can accept it, and then it before they accept it. This is my understanding of it. You get the job presented to you, it tells you how long and what route, and then Nikola just becomes the Uber essentially of the transportation fleet industry. So there's some opportunity there. I don't know how that would work or how they would leverage that on the consumer pickup truck side, but they're thinking about some innovative ways to disrupt it from a software perspective.
All right, I got another 2-part question. Did GM? Sorry, my ignorance. Did GM have no truck coming out, no electric vehicles? They want to get into the EV and hydrogen space, and I keep forgetting these second things. So let's just go ahead and ask about that.
They did a GM did a product announcement around their electric drivetrain called Ultium back in maybe March. It was around the time that things were kind of shutting down with the pandemic, but they did this whole digital online announcement about how they were going fully in with battery electric, and that was the future for GM. And so GM has spent a lot of capital investing into developing their own drivetrain, electric motors, and solidifying the partnership that they've got with LG Chem to do a joint venture in Lordstown, Ohio for a gigafactory, essentially. I think it's going to be somewhere around 20 gigawatt hours of battery production specifically for GM's vehicles. So they do have that going. I had no clue until this morning that GM had some sort of fuel cell technology. So that was really news to me, like double news to me that GM was not using Nikola's fuel cell technology and that GM had their own. So obviously, I'm a bit new to the fuel cell space, and admittedly still trying to wrap my head around the technology. I will get there, I promise.
Right.
But it was a surprise to me that was the case. I didn't even know that they had any sort of fuel cell. So my just layman's interpretation, layman's opinion about GM's approach is that it appears to be, and I could be completely wrong, and I reserve the right to say that I was completely off if things end up materializing differently in 12 months. But it just seems like GM is taking this shotgun approach of, oh, let's do this, and let's do this for zero emissions, and this too, and then we'll invest a little bit of it into each, and then we'll see what ends up panning out, and then eliminating the things that don't and spending more time on the things that do, versus really going fully on with their Ultium electric vehicle platform, like maybe I think that they should.
Right, like instead of like trying to spread themselves thin, just like focus on one thing and make it the best possible thing. So you said the software was very responsive. Do you got to test out the keyless remote feature and see it working?
No, not that, because we didn't get to drive anything, and then we did get test rides in their Nikola 2, but everything was very tightly controlled, which is not a big deal to me. Tesla does this as well with their test drives at product launch events. They don't want anyone touching the door handles or touching the car for fear of breaking something or something going wrong. So no, I didn't get to try that, but they did show it in presentation form, and then they also had a sort of like mock dash that could be used to sort of touch and play with the different features.
Awesome. So let me ask you about vertical integration. So we saw Tesla. Trevor Milton talked about in Tesla Joy's video and his explanation of it. What is your opinion of their version of vertical integration?
I don't. To be honest, I don't know if Trevor really knows what his definition of vertical integration is, because certainly what a lot of people are thinking is vertical integration is a lot like what Tesla looks like and a lot less what traditional OEMs do, which is outsource, the unimportant things. Actually outsource everything except for the engine, the internal combustion engine. Tesla takes a very different approach in that they believe that controlling the core elements of the vehicle are good, or it's been known that if they find that a third-party supplier cannot facilitate their standards or expectations, they just bring it in-house. So I know that Trevor has talked about vertical integration, how the vertical integration, yet it just seems like he's talking out of both sides of his mouth by saying, we're gonna build our own truck, but we're also going to outsource it and use Iveco's, platform and frame and drivetrain for their Nikola tray, and we're gonna get Nikola Badger built by GM, and he's also said that for what is not their core competency, they're gonna outsource because people can do it better. And he's talked about that specifically for manufacturing, but they're also planning on building a manufacturing facility in Phoenix area where they're going to be producing the Nikola 2. So I have no clue, and I would love to get some more clarification on that if and when I get to sit down one-on-one with Trevor Milton, which looks like it should materialize soon.
So Trevor Milton and Nikola has a long history of over-promising and under-delivering based off, interviews, and you saw the 2016 presentation where he says we're going to have hydrogen filling station built by 2029, and then it's actually not going to be 2021 according to new documents, and they're supposed to start actually shipping the Nikola 1 2020, and they just started the groundbreaking and don't have the building permits yet. Like all these contracts they currently have, let's say with Republic and all these other companies, what happens if they miss their deadline? Would the contract go away, or is it going to be like Theranos, where they kept promising they're going to have a product and delaying for, I think it was CVS or Walgreens?
Right. Yeah, Walgreens seems to stand out. I know very little about Theranos, so I won't talk too much about that. But here's the thing. I find that there's a small faction of people that are quick to jump on the fraud train. And it sounds controversial and sexy, but I have spent an early part of my career in early stage startups. And when you're an early stage startup, you don't know what you don't know. And so when you set a goal and you publicly state, we're going to do this, we're going to do X, but without ever having traveled that road to get to X, you don't realize that between A and X, there's a lot of other variables there that could throw off your plan completely, delay the timeline, or kill the company because you run out of money. So I'm not so quick to jump on the the belief that Trevor's just intentionally misleading people to steal their money and cash out on stock. It sounds like he does like to live a good life, and I'm not criticizing him at all about that. And however he wants to do that is fine. It also seems like he's given a lot of his stock to his employees, which I think is also noteworthy. So I think that there's a lot of unknowns when you're at as early stage of a startup as Nikola is. And may I remind the people that are watching that know a little bit about Tesla, up until maybe just recently, was notorious for missing their deadlines. And so I find it a bit hypocritical for some people to say, oh, it's okay that Elon Musk says something and then misses his deadline, yet Trevor says something and misses his deadline, and it's like, oh, fraud. Well, I guess depending on what faction of Tesla followers you talk to, Tesla Q is shouting fraud. So missing deadlines is not great. It's not great for companies. It's not great for investors. It's not great for customers. It should never happen, in my opinion. And if you're trying to generate awareness about your company and you're the type of personality that likes to sort of say really, really headline-catching things, like both Elon and Trevor do, I understand the tendency, but you're right. I watched some of the video that you were referencing with Trevor making those promises, and things seem to be changing. And the longer that things go, the more that things change. And maybe there will be some things that they promised in 2016 where they will over-deliver. We just don't know until they start producing their products. Mm-hmm. And I want to be one of those people that reserves as much criticism for until they actually start selling the products.
Okay, so you know how Tesla had a lot of criticism past, and recently now everyone's like a bull. Would you say when Tesla received those criticism back then, they were in a lot different position where Nikola was today, or is it similar or different?
Probably both. Probably similar and different. If you look at the Roadster, built off of the Lotus Elise chassis, there were some significant delays. In fact, the delays were so significant that they had to go back to their customers and ask them for more money to be able to get the vehicle to production. So to date, Nikola hasn't done that yet. They haven't gone back to their current reservation holders and asked for more money so they could get their products out to production. In fact, I'm most certain, and please feel free for those that are watching to correct me if I'm wrong, but if my memory serves me correct, they've been late on Tesla's been late on every single vehicle up until the Model Y. The first car that they've been on time or early with has been the Model Y, which uses 75% of the Model 3 parts. So there's always going to be an opportunity to criticize and focus on the negative. In my opinion, and this is an investor-centric YouTube channel, in my opinion, the real litmus test for whether a company can be successful or not is whether they can create a viable, safe, usable product and exchange it for money. If they can do this and customers love the product and they're enthusiastic about it, I think you've probably addressed 70 to 90% of a company's challenges with becoming successful. You create a really good product that people are willing to pay money for, and sometimes a premium, like Tesla, then I think the company's going to be okay. Until then, there's a lot of things that a company needs to prove.
All right. Yeah, one of those big challenges most people point out is criticism is hydrogen. It's highly flammable. It's very expensive, and the infrastructure is a lot more expensive than a gasoline station or creating a supercharger. And Trevor Milton did say they're going to reveal who they're partnering with Hydrogen Future. Who do you think that may be, and what does Nikola has to give up for that type of infrastructure?
Yeah, my guess is I think they're working with Nel, which is a Norwegian company. I think they're working with them already in Europe. That'd be my first guess, although I don't have enough of an understanding about who the players are with that. And I seem to remember when I was at Nikola World in 2019, they talked about the partnership or a partnership with Nel. So, I mean, yeah, the refueling infrastructure is not only going to be extremely cost intensive, it's going to require a lot of capital investment. It also doesn't exist. So, which is slightly different from electric vehicles, as they were sort of ramping up consumer demand. But the one thing that electric vehicles have over hydrogen refueling stations is that you have an electrical grid that's been built out over the last 100 years or so. So it's been relatively easy for electric vehicles and the recharging network to grow quickly, because all you have to do is leverage the existing electricity at buildings and different places. Nikola doesn't have that advantage. They literally have to create everything from scratch. So that's a huge obstacle. In the same breath, I remember in the early days of Tesla, there were some serious criticisms about them being able to succeed. I remember specifically people saying, "Oh, electric vehicles are not going to work because they're too expensive. They're $100,000 car." And once you address the wealthy person's market, it's going to flatten. That obviously Tesla has found a way to drive down the cost in several ways, and now you've got almost every major automaker in the world working on driving down the cost collectively. The other criticism was that there was no recharging infrastructure for EVs like gasoline when Tesla first began, which was a huge obstacle in my opinion, because without it, it just becomes a daily driver instead of a true car that you can get around and go on road trips. So slowly but surely, Tesla has been chipping away at those objections. And when Tesla launched their supercharging network, I think it was in 2013, it was just a very small swath of Southern California, if I remember correctly, or California. And sure enough, over the 7, 8 years that they've been working on this, they've grown it significantly. And now you can go coast to coast. You can go from Canada to Mexico if you wanted to, and any other continent almost seamlessly. So yeah, there's obstacles. Yes, things are expensive, but the reason why they're expensive is because you have no one trying to attack the economies of scale. So can Nikola do it? I don't know. But if they're motivated to do it, and there's a drive at the top from the founder and chairman and CEO, there's a good chance that they might be able to figure it out.
So what do you think the possible hydrogen timeline is to actually build out infrastructure for people who want a hydrogen car where they can travel across the country? And a lot of people are saying, even though hydrogen is likely easier to charge, but they think electric batteries will eventually surpass it, where hydrogen becomes obsolete in that time they need to build the infrastructure.
There's no crystal ball when it comes to zero emissions platforms and drivetrains. So it's hard to say with 100% certainty what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And anyone who tells you that they're certain about what's going to happen is a charlatan and foolish. I think it's important to approach it with caution, because any small thing can disrupt a new technology. And there's a lot of industries that would love to disrupt or disseminate misinformation, whether it's electric vehicles or hydrogen. So I am very encouraged by what I'm seeing with electric vehicle battery development on the research side. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening in the short term, 2 to 5 year, but also 5 to 10 year. And batteries will get less expensive. They'll probably shed some weight as well. The battery packs will get lighter. But then you also have efficiencies of electric motors too working. And so right now it seems like the capital investment by large institutions, large companies, is the momentum seems to be with battery electric. So, if you were to put me against the wall and say which one's going to win, battery electric has significant momentum. Hydrogen is still in its infancy, and that's why you see hydrogen fuel really expensive. But Nikola and any other large companies are going to need to double and quadruple down. There's going to need to be a significant investment if they want to try and catch up to battery electric's momentum that they have currently.
Awesome. I have a couple more questions to ask you, and then you
Yep.
can say what's on your mind. So I think we lost you, Sean.
Oops.
Oh, there we go. No worries.
Yeah.
So someone asked me in chat, what do you think about solid-state batteries and KCOC versus lithium-ion, and have you researched about Hyliion and their hybrid system, and then the ERX with the natural gas?
I'd love to learn more about Hyliion or how are they pronounced? Because I think they're from Austin, if I remember correctly. So it's like my hometown. I should know a little bit about them.
You can actually go to the front door knock, and the CEO would talk to you and let you test drive. So a couple of people have done it, and he actually did it. Yeah,
I love it. I should do that next time I'm in Austin, which might be very, very soon. For solid state, as I understand it, they're still in research phase. They're still trying to. It's not ready for large scale production. This is a statement based off of conversations that I had with Jeff Don when I was in Halifax, Nova Scotia last year in 2019. This is also based on conversations that I've had with battery researchers, both independent, some like people that are way smarter than I am, like PhD type people, and they all say that solid state is a 5 to 10 year away technology. So lithium ion still has some headroom. There's still some headroom to grow. So I think for the next 5 years, we probably won't hear anything more in terms of those solid state going into vehicles, because it's not ready for prime time.
Right.
That's my guess, and I'm surprised that what's the company Fisker has talked so much about solid state with their electric vehicle, the Emotion, because as I understand it, based on the conversations that I've had with people way smarter than me, that's not a technology that's ready for prime time yet, prime time production.
Yeah, personally, the way I see it, I feel like lithium ion would like advance so far, like it's slowly making it better, and eventually all these new technology, hydrogen, solid state, would no longer be viable at that point. But it's all speculation for now. And so you haven't had a chance to look into Hyliion, or you can do a video.
No, I'd love to though.
Yeah.
If they're watching and listening, I'd love to collaborate. And I don't have a firm date set for the next time I'll be in Austin, but it's coming very, very soon. There's some behind the scenes projects that I'm working on that will be significant in the next 6 to 8 months that probably many of you will hear about and be excited to receive some news on. So I'll probably be down there sometime very, very soon, and maybe I can hit them up and just learn a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe we should just have all our fans mass tweet Thomas Healy's like, hey, interview, get Sean Mitchell, check out your stuff. Right. So my last main question I have for you is, what does Nikola have to prove in order to convert most of the doubters who have an open mind and not just straight doubting, and convert your mind too?
Absolutely. I love this question because in my opinion, it really boils down to revenue, to money. Mm-hmm. Money talks. So if they can sell a product and the customers like it, it's safe and reliable, in my opinion, that is going to be the ultimate litmus test for Nikola. Can they sell a product? So they have to get it to production. This is the thing that is going to be harder than I think that they expect. Can they get it to production? And can they create a product that customers like? And more importantly, probably, is it's safe and reliable. reliability is going to be key in the fleet transportation industry. You can't have a semi-truck broken down because you're losing money by the minute. And can it be safe, right? We talked about hydrogen and its potential risks. What happens if it gets into a wreck? What happens if the hydrogen tanks are compromised? Those are all things that we just don't know enough about from a fleet transportation perspective. So money, revenue, in my opinion, will be the ultimate answer and response, just like Tesla. You know, they're now building momentum with selling volumes of vehicles, and it's hard to ignore the future of Tesla. Whereas maybe 24 months ago, 36 months ago, there was a lot up in question because they couldn't get the Model 3 up to high volumes. So production, revenue, happy customers who are safe and in reliable vehicles.
Yeah. Sorry, I know I said that was the last question, but I actually thought of another question I would like to know, since you know the space very well. How would the Badger do compared to the Cybertruck, Rivian, the Endurance? You have all these great trucks coming out, and the Ford F-150. So, like, does Nikola have a place for all that?
I don't know. It's, again, it's like, this is the catch-22 of the company. Yeah, they can produce a pretty mean graphic render of the Badger,
and it could look completely different from what the render looks like. For example, in the 26 presentation.
If they're giving it to the hands of GM, there's a pretty good chance that it's going to look different from the render. So they make a really mean render, and I've teased them about that, and I think they've even sort of indirectly acknowledged that when I was visiting. But they make a really mean render. Can it compete? There's just no way to know at this point because there's such a new company. It could be badass, or it could be lame and be like I'm going to throw a jab here. It could be lame like the workhorse. Right. Is the workhorse? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, the trucks. Yeah, if you go inside, it's like bare bones. Like, where? This does not look like an EV vehicle at all.
No, there's no, like, hell would need to freeze over, and all these other companies would die before I would ever consider a workhorse pickup truck. Mm-hmm. I know it's really critical and mean, but you need some fireworks in this interview anyway. So.
Are you talking about the workhorse, their last mile transportation, or the endurance truck from Lordstown's Motor? They're actually two different companies.
The Lordstown, yeah, for sure. So there's just really no way to know. I would put, if I was going to put my money on who's going to succeed, it would probably be Rivian and Tesla with their pickup trucks. Rivian and Tesla, those are the ones that I mean, granted. I know a little bit about Bollinger, spent some time with the CEO, but to me, mass market pickup trucks, I'd put my money on Tesla and Rivian without hesitation.
You mean the soda fountains is not enough for you to sip on it and look at the competitors?
Listen, I mean, if that's your jam and you feel the need to have a soda from hydrogen water, cool, but I need something that's going to get me from point A to point B reliably with enough range and a sufficient charging infrastructure that I don't have to worry about running out of juice with all the driving that I do.
Okay. So since you're planning to have an interview with Trevor Milton, I do have some requests if you could talk to him about. Maybe talk about the financials, like how they're planning to spend their money and their cash flow, because they say they have close to $1 billion, and I don't know how that's being spent, because a lot of people are speculating it might go into hydrogen infrastructure, but they partner with someone, they might have to give up more equity in their company, in my opinion, what's going to happen. So that'll be a good one to ask.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, $1 billion for an automaker is not a lot of money.
No,
that goes very, very fast. You can spend, $3 to $5 billion on just one program, one vehicle program, to get prototypes out. So, I mean, $1 billion is a lot of money for the average person, but not for an automaker. Right. So I do think that's interesting and a valid point. I'm not so my strength isn't so much in the financials of companies. I tend to pay more attention to how consumers are responding to things, and the sales and marketing piece of things. That's just because that's what I know, and that's probably a little bit more of my background. But certainly, it makes sense to ask him about financials and how they plan to attack this. Are they going to raise more capital? are they going to take some additional investors that will give them some additional cash? Who knows? But $1 billion does not last very long for an automotive company.
Right. Right. Is there any focus questions that you do plan to ask Trevor in your one-on-one interview with him that hasn't really been answered or talked about yet?
Nothing offhand, and I'm still working out the details of even setting a date. But I got twice Trevor confirmed with me that he wants to do it and that he's going to prioritize it, and then his executive assistant confirmed with me as well that he's working on finding a time to fit me in. So I don't right offhand, I don't have any specific questions that come to mind, but I really need to sit down and let's say I get an hour with him. I could probably talk about 2 to 4 topics in detail. That's what I really need to do. I need to go deep on a few topics because he's a gabber. He's a talker, and you get him on a topic and you transition to another topic and you may not get the full detail that people want. So my intent is certainly to pick maybe 2 to 4 topics and try and go as deep as possible, like you learn in sales, like you peel back the onion layer after layer after layer of a topic. That's my objective. Hopefully when people watch the interview, they feel like they got multiple layers deep on a particular topic. Hydrogen refueling station, certainly something that I'm curious. These are all things that I have questions about anyway. Like, how are you going to address that? It's going to be expensive, even if you're driving down the cost below $15 million per station. How are you going to do that? Now, I think that they're going to leverage their customer base and they're going to install the refueling station by using customer money. But, there's getting a vehicle to production is another piece of things. Like, I think that they're understating the difficulty of getting one product line to production. So anyways, those are a couple of things that come to mind, just sort of ad hoc and off the cuff. But my intent is there's a lot I could talk about so many things with him because he's just such an approachable guy. But narrowing it down to 2 to 4 topics will be my objective.
So since you're an investor, would you invest in Nikola now, or are you going to wait till you actually see product?
So I actually invested in them.
I
bought some stock. Yeah. So this is like first time I'm even saying this to anyone.
Breaking news. Sean Mitchell, the skeptic, bought Nikola and he's still a skeptic.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Just like what we've talked about today, I'll say this with a little bit more point. At such an early stage of a company, it's high risk, regardless of whether it's Nikola or some new fancy software that's creating a mobile app, like, I don't know, TikTok or something like that, the next TikTok. If you invest into a company that doesn't have any revenue, it's extremely high risk. So I decided after visiting them that I liked the people enough, I liked the person enough to invest some money and just see where it goes. And I would never invest any money that I didn't want to lose. And so I'm fully prepared for Nikola to go to zero. And if that happens, I'll walk away and I'm like, okay, it was high risk. So I get it. There was no surprise. If that does happen, I won't be surprised. However, high risk and high reward. So if they do succeed, then maybe I've won a little bit of money. I mean, at the moment, I'm up 50%. So
just today,
I don't know, like, what now, Nikola Q? What are you saying now? No, just kidding. I don't want to instigate, but my thought is, I think the next 4 months for them are going to be pretty significant.
Okay.
And I think it's going to move the stock in a positive way. Beyond that, I don't know. Am I a long-term investor? Probably not. Am I like short, like 4 to 6 months? I can see myself hanging on to it for that long. And if I lose money, okay, fine. I think I'm in, like, I don't know, five or six shares. So not a huge investment.
Right. Oh, well, that's like a couple $100 based on the stock price today. So tell us about those marshmallows. What's the deal with it? You've been posting all on Twitter, and any departing words for today?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as you can see in the background, I still have these I bought them for the video that I created about Nikola. The short version is, so this all started back to someone who's a part of the Tesla Q community accusing me of being paid by Tesla to pump their stock and put out positive videos about Tesla. And I mean, like, it's just absurd. It's absurd and uneducated and immature to even come to those conclusions without any basis. So, maybe someone could say that, oh, you got paid through referrals and you referred someone to Tesla. They bought a Tesla and you got a 6 set of tires and wheels that you got on your car. Like, yeah, I mean, but Tesla's not paying me any money to talk positively about them. In fact, there have been some times where I've been extremely critical of Tesla, particularly around their build quality. So and every time I come out with a video where I say something just remotely positive about a new company, there's always some jackass who says, "Oh, you must have been paid," or "What did you get in exchange for the positive review?" So I'm pretty careful particularly when it's a new company. I'm pretty careful about trying to like talk about both sides, things that I liked and things that I didn't like. And I feel like with this Nikola video, I did an okay job with talking about both sides. So the marshmallow thing. Okay, so I got a little side tangent. So the marshmallow thing came from this Nikola Q guy. He accused me of being paid by Tesla, and I said, you know what? You caught me. I am paid handsomely by Tesla. ... with copious amounts of marshmallows. Tesla saw that, and because they're a fun company, they bought some marshmallows and put them in the mail and sent them to my doorstep via Amazon.
They should have delivered it in a Model Y and give it to you.
That would be acceptable, although people would probably complain that I was bought by Tesla. So now it's just this, like, the marshmallow thing is this middle finger to anyone who has this just absurd accusation without basis for me being paid for or bought by any automaker, whether it's Rivian or Nikola or Tesla or Porsche. I mean, every automaker does something to try and get the attention of those who talk about the automotive industry. So, like, companies have paid for my air travel, my hotel before, but no one's ever given me a check for any money in exchange for a positive video. And the accusations of that is just absurd. So the marshmallow thing is a middle finger to anyone who lacks critical analysis and the ability to present their case in a strong way.
No, totally agree. I get accused of a lot of that. Since I'm a professional gamer, I review and go to a lot of games, and people think I'm being paid for my reviews. I mean, I know you're running short of time, and I had one more question, but I don't want to take up any of your time.
What time we got? Let me see here. Let's see. Let's get a look at the...
It's about 2:30 for you, I believe.
Oh, I've got, let's say, 10 or 15 more minutes, and then I got to jump to another call.
Okay. My question is, what are your thoughts on the garbage truck? This whole Republic series. Like, what's going on? Why are they jumping into everything?
I think it's a company looking for revenue opportunity. I mean, so it's hard to criticize a company who's looking to lock in deals and contracts. And if it's a relatively easy transition, an easy conversion of their Nikola tray to this garbage truck, then fine, cool. Like, I don't know. I'm not as critical about it. They have to get it to production. And again, it's really hard just to get one vehicle, one product to production. So they have a long road ahead of them, even for that. And, if they can do it, great, because the trash trucks that come by and pick up the trash at my place, they are
noisy,
super loud,
oh,
really loud.
Yeah.
So I
in
would
the
love
morning
it.
too.
Oh yeah, for real. So I don't know. I haven't really put too much thought into it. If they can make it work, great. I understand it's a company that's pre-revenue looking for contracts and deals, and will these larger companies hang on until they can get their vehicles to production, who knows? They could back out, and they lose them. At the moment, short term, it's probably a positive stock pump. Investors probably like to hear that there's other companies, larger companies, more established companies that see value in what Nikola is doing. So I guess in short term, if you're an investor of Nikola, probably positive, but it's really short-lived. For me, I mean, I wouldn't like boldly proclaim that I'm a Nikola investor. It's just more of an experiment for me, and as I learn more about them. But if they can do it, great. If not, I'm sure that they're not going to lose a ton of money if that deal falls apart.
Mm-hmm. So how should we even view Nikola now? It seems like they're trying to partner with anyone. Like they seem like a car design company with some hardware and software to integrate. Are they anything else in that?
I don't know. They may end up becoming the Android OS for the automotive industry. I know there was a lot of talk about. I mean, quite frankly, Apple or Google could become could become the software that automakers integrate into their products. So maybe that's the long-term plan for Nikola. Maybe they are thinking about that as we're going to solve the software cluster that is fleet transportation, and it is a cluster, mind you. I worked for a software company that sold to fleets. It is hodgepodge and a cluster. It's terrible, and I think Tesla could be in the best position here to solve that business problem for transportation companies. But Nikola seems to be chipping away. Maybe they will be the Android Auto of fleet transportation. If they don't care about producing their own vehicles and they're outsourcing it, and they're trying to outsource as much as possible, if you were to put me against the wall now and say, where will this company be in 5 years? It's probably selling their software stack to other fleet transportation companies.
Well, Mr. Sean Mitchell, it's been a pleasure picking your brain and getting insight, and hopefully we get some more details about Nikola when you interview Trevor Milton. Is there anything you would like to say before we sign off here?
No, thank you. I'm super humbled that you reached out, and appreciative that anyone, whether it's 3 people or 3,000 or 100,000 people, are curious about what I have to say about anything. It's very flattering, and I'm super thankful that you reached out, and I hope that those that watched today found some value and some takeaways, or at least some things to consider. And one thing's for sure, the automotive industry is in the process of being disrupted, and it's really, really good for our future. It's great for zero emissions. It's great for eliminating pollution, and I'm excited to just be a pundit and enthusiast in this market. So thanks for having me.
All right, so you guys can check out Sean Mitchell in his YouTube link right below, and he does have some interesting insight on his Twitter, so I recommend that as well. All right, guys, thank you so much for being on the stream. It was a pleasure.